Hello everyone, what's up and welcome back to another video. Today I will be discussing all the books that I read in June. But before we get started, please remember to like the video, subscribe and comment down below what was your favorite book of the month. And without any further ado, let's just jump right into the video. So the first book I read was Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I'm sure everyone has seen this, especially on Book Talks, but if you are not sure what this book is about, this is about a world where elites are the most powerful. They have powers, they reign the world, and they can control you. They also have no place for ordinaries in this world. So if you have no power, you will be sent to the Scorchers, where you will essentially die. And so we get Payton, who is obviously the girl who has no power, but she acts as if she has psychic powers in order to stay alive in this world. And while she does that, she saves the prince, one of the princes who is going to become a very popular person in the kingdom. And this results in her being chosen for the purging trials, where they fight with their magic, and essentially leads to her falling in love with one of the princes. This book was so captivating. I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the banter between the two characters, as well as the way they spoke to each other. You know, that enemies to lovers kind of banter that everyone likes? That is the type of banter that was in this book. Towards the middle, it was a bit slow because I think there were 3 trials. Well, before each trial there was a ball, then they had the trials, and then it was like the cooling down before the new trial started. I found that a bit repetitive. Even though each trial was different, I was just like, okay, can we get a move on? I want to see a bit more romance. The pining between the two characters as well, immaculate. And there's also severe betrayal going on in this book, so I really enjoyed it. If you like enemies to lovers or lovers to enemies, I think you can explain it more like that. It's lovers to enemies. Yeah, I would suggest picking this book up. And then I read the second book in this series, Powerful, and this book basically follows Payton's best friend Adina and how she is trying to survive in the slums after her best friend has been chosen for the purging trials, and how she ends up almost dying and then ends up in the arms of someone who will essentially save her and help her get into the castle so that she can be with her best friend. But obviously things go wrong. If you've read Powerless, you will know how the story ends. It was also a 3.5 to a 4-star for me. I really enjoyed it. Adina's relationship with the person who saves her it's really sweet. It's just a short novella, a short romantic novella of how, you know, even though you are in some places, you can overcome them. It was a very refreshing, quick read. This is also the fastest I've jumped from one book to the novella without even blinking. I just threw my whole TBR out the window and I was like, I need to read the next book. And now Reckless is out and I'm very happy because now I'm making my way through that book. The next book I read was an ARC that I received from Willow Trading, and it's Chains of Gwindor by Joan Campbell. This is a South African author, and this is essentially about a girl who lives with her aunt and her uncle, but she's kind of the black sheep of the family. Her uncle usually just punishes her for speaking out because she's a very outspoken person. If something is wrong, she will say it. There's also a war going on between the higher ups, or you can also call them like elite people, the saviors of this town, as well as I believe they're called Paradoshi. They are really looked down upon because they are poor, they don't have money. And so there's a power fight between these guys, and there's also a commando who actually saved this town. So there's a lot happening in here. There's a lot of characters introduced in this book as well, but essentially we just follow Shara, how she discovers this rock and is being followed by this bird over here to uncover secrets that are linked to her uncle as well as the commander of this town, and that not everything is what you believe it is. She also starts falling in love with her estranged best friend. They rekindled their friendship after he was basically told that he is not allowed to talk to her because he is Paradoshi and she is a nobleborn. And so they split from each other, and later on they come back towards each other. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was just so action-packed. There was obviously a lot going on and a lot of characters being introduced, but once you get into the swing of things, it just flows so quickly. Each chapter doesn't end on a way that you think, I can just put this book down. Like, I really enjoyed this book. I flew through it, I think, in 2 days. And yeah, I think this is going to be one of my new favorite South African authors. Then the next two books I read with my bestie as well is Spiritbound as well as Lost Sacrifice by Richelle Mead. This is the fifth and the last book, or the sixth book in the Vampire Academy series, and it's basically about vampires at an academy. I think that is the only way I can sum it up. Because this is the fifth and the sixth book, I don't really want to give a lot away. If those of you haven't read these books, I didn't enjoy Spiritbound at all. I felt it was very repetitive. I felt like there was too much drama going on. Like the teen drama was amped up in this book. I also suggested in my vlog that this book should come with a warning, kids don't try this at home, because there's a lot of things that are happening in this book that can be questionable. But this one, I really enjoyed. I thought there was enough action, there was enough things happening. I think the thing I enjoyed about this one is it's kind of like on the road fantasy or urban fantasy, like they're traveling, things are happening, whereas in this book they are basically at one place and nothing is really happening. It's just drama. That's all that is. And I don't particularly like drama. If it's drama on the road, yeah, give it to me. But this, no, it was boring. So this I gave 3 stars, and I'm feeling like I need to bump it down to 2. And this I'm giving 4 stars. I think I gave this one 4 stars because I really just enjoyed this one way more than this one. So overall, in the whole series, I enjoyed the first one, definitely the third one, the fourth one, and then the last one. But the second one and the fifth one was just like, we could have done without these. If they were just squished in together, that would have been nice. I think the only other thing that also bothered me about these books is we are in the 5th and the 6th book. There are still explanations as to what happened in the 3rd book, or even in the 1st book. Surely, if you've started reading the last book, you would know or what is happening. Otherwise, why would you be reading the 6th book? So yeah, that was just a bit annoying for me. Like, we kept getting recaps and it was too much. Like, she wanted to make up for page counts and it really wasn't necessary. There was also over explanation of Rose telling us every single time that she can do this because she received the combat training. We know that. You don't have to tell us in every single book that you've received combat training. We know. Anyway, so I'm just glad the series is over. Then I read A Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stasia Stark. This was a book that was recommended to me by one of my friends over on Instagram, and I would essentially call this the opposite of what Powerless is, where in Powerless we have a main character that has no power. A Court This Cruel and Lovely is basically about a girl who has severe, strong powers. What happens if they realize that you have power and it wasn't suppressed until your 25th birthday? You will then be executed, because parents have to take their kids when they're 3 and offer their powers basically to the higher gods, and if the gods accept it, then they will have no power until the age of 25, where the king's people will come back and give a fraction of the power back to these people, or back to the people that offered, the power to the higher gods. Our main character says, she continues to explain in this book, that the higher gods did not want her power. They rejected her power. So she's been trying to keep her power hidden, but unfortunately something happens and she exposes herself to the whole town. So she flees, and she flees into a group of mercenaries who essentially leave her for dead, but later take her in and train her, help her to survive throughout the wilderness and to escape the kingdom. The romance between one of the mercenaries and our main character was a bit fast, but it was also very enjoyable. And then it became severe slow burn towards the middle of the book and the end of the book. Like, that middle chunk was just so slow burn. I don't think I can say a lot about this. If you like fantasy, I would definitely suggest picking this book up because it was really intriguing to read. It was fast paced and just enjoyable, I guess. The next book I read was Funny Story by Emily Hnery. This book follows Daphne and Miles, and Daphne's fiance and Miles's fiance confess their love for each other on Daphne's fiance's bachelor party, because these two have been friends for like ever. So what happens is Daphne gets dumped and she is asked to move out of the house that she and her fiance tried to build up in this new town where the fiance grew up. So she left everything in her previous town and she moved in with him. So then she decides to move in with Miles because now he has a spare bedroom. And eventually he decides to show her around the place because she's new to it. She doesn't know, where to go, and she hasn't built a life for herself there, and she hasn't built memories for herself there. So she decides to take him up on his offer, and they travel this town while falling in love. I love this book. I am obsessed with this book. Emily Hnery can do no wrong in my eyes. This was such a beautiful book to read, and I said this in my review as well, or in my vlog as well. Emily Hnery wrote this book in a way that perfectly describes how it feels to fall in love. Like the butterflies, the heated, the blushing, and all of that. It just made me feel so warm and fuzzy inside. And this is one of the books that if I could remove what I read about this book and read it for the first time again, I definitely would, because I ate this book up. I read it in a day, basically, because I just couldn't put it down, and I loved it. So definitely would recommend. I've also read another book of Emily Hnery called Happy Place. I thought that was also a good book, but now Funny Story is on the top of the list and Happy Place is just below it. I still haven't read like the other books, her backlist, but I definitely am going to try. Then the hype caught up to me, and I was also still in that very romancy feeling, so I picked up Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. It's also a very hyped up book, and for good reason. Justin believes he has a curse and he shares this on Reddit. He says every time he dumps a girl, they go and find their true love, like instantly after he dumps them. And then Emma, our female main character, messages him on Reddit, and she's like, hey, I have the same curse. And eventually Justin is like, do you want to date so that we can just counteract the curse, and then we'll go on our merry way, and then we'll, find the one. The plan is that it is supposed to be a quick fling, but obviously it doesn't happen. They fake date, and Justin is just the sweetest guy on earth, and it was just, loving, feeling close to, if I can put Funny Story and Just for the Summer next to each other, they juggle like this. They're like very close to one another in my favorites for this month. So love this book. Don't have a lot to say about it, obviously, but I really, really love this book. The next book I read was The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This was a suggestion from my bestie to read, and to read it very quickly and to read it immediately. And I picked this book up because it has vampires in it, and we follow our main character who's a human in a vampire world. She was adopted by the most powerful vampire in this kingdom, and now she is going to take place in trials which will help her receive power if she survives these trials, so that she can become half human, half vampire, and do what she continues doing, and that is hunting vampires who thinks human are just their snacks, just their playthings. But during this trial, she also discovers that her adopted father, has been keeping secrets from her, and things happen between her and one contestant that's just messy, but it's also very slow burn, and it is very action-packed. This book, I think for me, I had to focus really hard on the audio as well as reading the book, and somewhere along the line while listening to the audio I zoned out. So the quality of this book was just like I'm enjoying it, but at the same time I'm like, whatever. It is what it is, I guess. And then eventually I had to take a break because I really wanted to love this book. And I think I also felt bad that if I told my best friend, listen, I'm going to give it 3 stars because it was okay. Like, it wasn't really impactful, but I enjoyed it, I guess. And then I took a break and I continued this book, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think it was just a mind switch for me that had to happen, but this was such a good book. So yeah, definitely suggest. If you like fantasy, if you like urban fantasy, if you like vampires, pick this one up. Then I read The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. I saw that this book was suggested if you liked Bride, but you wanted something more spicy. I don't want the something more spicy. I just wanted something similar to Bride, and then I picked this one up, and whoa. So we basically get Mackenzie, or everyone calls her Mac, and she is trying to stave off her grandmother because her grandmother keeps saying, oh, you need to date someone because I want grandbabies, and you're not getting any younger, that kind of thing. And so she makes a proposal to the chief of surgery or something in this hospital, and she approaches him and she's like, hey, Noah can be my fake boyfriend. And he is like, why should I do this for you? And then he realizes that he's also in a predicament because he is an alpha wolf, and there's stigma around werewolves, and that if they are not mated, they are more aggressive. And someone revealed to the board of the hospital that he's an alpha and he's unmated, and now he's like, okay, so I need a plan. I need to get a female werewolf and I need to fake mate her. And so these two fake date essentially, and they soon realize that they're more compatible than they think they were. And Noah, being the grumpy person, is very hard to make smile, but Mackenzie gets it right, and you can just imagine where this book goes. This book was spicy. Like severely spicy. It is also based on the Omegaverse, so if you're not sure what it is, I won't suggest picking this book up for suggestions for the Omegaverse. A really good book, really enjoyable. Gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Just if you're looking for something quick and romantic, or if you want to jump from it was romance and now you want urban fantasy romance, but it leans more on the romance and not the urban fantasy, yeah, this book is for you. And then the last book is The Seventh Bride by T. Kingfisher. This is about a young girl, I believe she's 13, and she is forced to marry like this old guy from town, and she soon discovers that she is not his only wife. And there's magic involved in this whole story. There is betrayal involved in this whole story, and it is just a mess, but it was a fun mess. It's a quick read as well, so if you haven't read some of T. Kingfisher's books, the books are very short and they are very easy to get through. I don't know what fairy tale retelling it is. I saw someone mention it was a Bluebeard retelling. I've never read Bluebeard, so I wouldn't know. It was very entertaining to listen to this book. I didn't read it, but yeah, just the character growth throughout this all, the way that the main character is trying to save everyone in this house after she discovers that she's not the only wife. I've seen some people complain that T. Kingfisher writes a bit more fantasy now than I think it's like gothic-y that they used to dabble in, so I don't know, but this is the second book I read by T. Kingfisher, and I really love the books. So yeah, that is all the books that I read in June. I really hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in a video next week.